Good afternoon. You are watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Nofad, and these are today's headlines. Cabinet ministers agree to form a committee to study the use of thermal treatment on Beirut's accumulating waste crisis. Syrian doctors in opposition districts of Aleppo accuse the United States of inaction in the face of repeated atrocities in the devastated city. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan calls on the United States to extradite Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom he accuses of the coup. Thank you for tuning in to all our viewers. We begin this afternoon with the cabinet. Cabinet ministers agreed to form a committee to study the use of thermal treatment on Beirut's accumulating waste during this month. Before heading into the Grand Sarai for a cabinet meeting, Administrative Development Minister Nabil Defresh said that the country could take advantage of its waste by making every municipality use incinerators to convert trash into energy. Environment Minister Mohamed Mashnout told reporters that the use of thermal treatment, the incineration of trash, would be discussed during the session. Telecommunications Minister Boutros Halb and Defense Minister Samir Muqbil did not attend the meeting as they are both out of the country. Ahead of the session, several ministers mentioned a number of other issues they would like to bring up during the meeting. The trash crisis began in July of last year and it is now ongoing. Even after a year, the ministers have failed to find a solution. A Lebanese army helicopter shot down a position of a Nusra front on the outskirts of the northeastern town of Arsel, according to the national news agency. An army chopper launched an evening raid and rocketed the positions of Nusra, targeting it with 3 rockets. A military source told Al Jamhuriya Daily the army has monitored a large group of militants in the outskirts preparing for something. Earlier in August, the army retaliated to shelling from Daesh on the border with Syria after destroying a Nusra post in the outskirts of Arsel. Militants both from Daesh and Nusra are entrenched in rugged areas along the undermarketed Lebanese-Syrian border, and the army regularly shells their posts while Hezbollah and the Syrian army have engaged in clashes with them on the Syrian side of the border. In other news, Maronite Patriarch says that all Lebanese must cooperate to cut off the hand of terrorism during his visit to Baalbek and several Ba'a towns. He was quoted saying, "We consider this visit as a completion of our condolences visit to Al-Qa in light of what we heard from our people regarding their fear for their future and their need for reassurances and for the presence of the army that is defending the front." Al-Ra'i at the Baalbek Maronite Archbishopric noted that Lebanon is the only country in the Middle East that is still steadfast in the face of terrorism due to the resolve of its people who want to preserve their existence despite all differences. Syrian doctors in opposition districts of Aleppo have accused the United States of inaction in the face of repeated atrocities in the devastated city. In a heart-wrenching letter addressed to U.S. President Barack Obama, 15 of the 35 doctors in eastern neighborhoods of Syria's second city warned the situation would be desperate for civilians if regime forces reimpose a siege. On Saturday, rebels and allied militants broke a 3-week government encirclement that had left many parts of Aleppo reeling from skyrocketing prices and food shortages. But the pediatricians, surgeons, and other physicians who signed the letter said the situation remains dire. The letter lambasts the U.S., saying it had seen no effort on behalf of it to lift the siege or even use its influence to push the parties to protect the civilians. And so the United Nations said it stands ready to negotiate with any partners that are willing to coordinate with its humanitarian aid to people that are trapped in Aleppo, Syria, but must be in charge of the delivery, according to the UN humanitarian chief. He said Mr. Stephen O'Brien made the comment at a press conference in response to Russia's suggestion of coordinating the UN's efforts in delivering supplies into Aleppo.
any proposals are being made to enable access for humanitarian supplies to reach people in need, we will have those discussions at whatever level and wherever they exist. And indeed, my office is in touch with some of those you've mentioned, and we're having those discussions. But I should be absolutely clear. However the access is made available, it is not appropriate, nor would you expect the United Nations and indeed humanitarian partners who are not part of the United Nations but part of the broad supply chain for humanitarian goods and for getting evacuees with medical needs out. We are absolutely neutral, independent and impartial. It is not possible for us to work in tandem with or in partnership with a military force or with that kind of activity. That's why we will, of course, negotiate and seriously and with respect with any member state that makes any proposals. But in the end, the UN has to be in charge of delivering according to principles.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is calling on the United States to extradite U.S.-based Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom he accuses of orchestrating the coup attempt against his rule, a claim the 75-year-old cleric denies. Addressing thousands of people gathered outside the presidential palace in Ankara, Erdogan said Washington needed to make a choice. The speech was billed as the culmination of nightly rallies in cities across Turkey to show solidarity since the attempted coup. Referring to bomb attacks and cross-border fire that killed 13 in southeast Turkey on Wednesday, Erdogan said the country was facing multiple threats. It is dealing with the aftermath of a failed coup attempt on July 15, which killed more than 240 and wounded 2,200. Although more than 60,000 people, including many of the military and police, have been detained. 60,000 people suspended or placed under investigation since the coup attempt, in which rogue soldiers commandeered tanks and warplanes to try to take power. Coming up next, Canadian police shoot dead an alleged Daesh sympathizer armed with an explosive device. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. Canadian police shot dead an alleged Daesh sympathizer armed with an explosive device, media reports say, as police confirm they thwarted a potential terror threat. There was no immediate confirmation from Canada's federal police that anyone had been shot, with a statement saying only that a suspect had been identified and that they had taken action after receiving credible information about a potential attack. Media reports say the suspect was a 24-year-old man who had been arrested in 2015 for expressing support for Daesh in postings on social media. He has been released in February but was being monitored. Canadian broadcaster CBC identified him as Aaron Driver, saying he was shot dead during a police raid in Strathroy, a residential area in southern Ontario, which lies about 220 kilometers southwest of Toronto. On to the U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton says Republican Donald Trump's gun rights comments incites violence and says he does not have the temperament to be president. Trump's remark at a Tuesday rally in which he suggested gun rights advocates could stop Hillary Clinton from appointing liberal justices sparked a torrent of criticism on social media.
Let me say something about what I think is a critical difference between my opponent and myself. Words matter, my friends. And if you are running to be president or you are president of the United States, words can have tremendous consequences. Yesterday, we witnessed the latest in a long line of casual comments from Donald Trump that cross the line. His casual cruelty to a Gold Star family. His casual suggestion that more countries should have nuclear weapons. And now his casual inciting of violence. Every single one of these incidents shows us that Donald Trump simply does not have the temperament to be President and Commander-in-Chief of the United States.
U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump criticized Hillary Clinton's use of private email server and obliquely referenced gun rights comments he made the day before in this clip.
A big part of the rig system is the press itself, because they can take a little story that isn't a story and make it into a big deal. Happens so much. And speaking of that, remember this. We have so many things that we have to protect in this country. We have to protect our Second Amendment, which is under siege. Remember that. Remember that. It's under siege. And then you look at what she's doing with her emails. 33,000 missing emails. Yeah, 33,000. Yeah. It's very sad. And then I guess yesterday 1,000 came out or something, some fairly vast number. Oh, I want to see the ones, what I really would like to see, though. We have to see the 33,000. Can you imagine? Remember she said, I think it was for her wedding, the wedding of Chelsea, and it was for yoga classes. 33,000 emails. It's a lot of yoga. It's a lot of yoga. And some of these were really, really bad and illegal. If it's true, it's illegal. You're paying and you're getting things. I mean, I watched yesterday, because of The Apprentice, Blagojevich, right? Governor Blagojevich, 14 years in jail. And, you know, some people think, okay, some people think it's crazy. Look at what she's done. Nothing. She's running for president. But it came out that her people pay for play. And very big stories today. The problem is it'll be big stories for about 2 minutes and then they're going to drop it because the media is so totally dishonest.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Cabinet ministers agree to form a committee to study the use of thermal treatment on Beirut's accumulating waste crisis. Syrian doctors in opposition districts of Aleppo accused the United States of inaction in the face of repeated atrocities in the devastated city. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan calls on the U.S. to extradite cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom he accuses of orchestrating the coup attempt against his rule. Those are your Thursday headlines live on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you all a good night. Be safe.